Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are tackling a really big one.
We really are. It's a deep one for sure.
We've taken this whole stack of sources. We're talking interviews, books, really personal notes, and we're going to try to build a kind of philosophical roadmap.
Specifically, the roadmap of the creator and artist Andrey Psyche.
Right, and this isn't just a profile about his art, which is what you might expect.
No, not at all. It's his entire worldview. He's laid out this highly structured philosophy for life, and it's fascinating because he came from such a traditional, highly regarded professional track.
Absolutely, and we've pulled from everything. We've got his books, Expedition to the Psyche, the Diamond Edition, and Space Between the Crescent Shadows.
And a ton of long-form interviews that really get into the details. So for you, the listener, you can think of all this material as like a single, complex personal philosophy book that we're unpacking.
And his core idea, the one that really stands out, is that your life is the ultimate art form.
That's the mission, yeah. So we want to understand the mechanics of that. How did he go from living a life dictated by what everyone else expected of him to becoming what he calls the sovereign creator of his own experience?
And here's the key insight we want you to walk away with today. It's this crucial link between embracing your shadows, your darkness, and being able to achieve unconditional love.
It's a powerful idea. We're going to show you why he believes that to have real personal power, you have to stop running from the darkness.
Because that acceptance, that's the only gateway to real freedom and to, well, genuine love.
So let's get into the deep mechanics of that. Let's start at the beginning of that transition, the genesis of the sovereign creator.
Okay, let's unpack this journey, because it is. It's jarring when you see where he started.
Right.
He wasn't some, a dreamy art student. He was on the classic path to becoming a doctor, a successful pre-med student.
The pinnacle of professional achievement, right. Medical school in New York. It's the most rigid, respected form of societal aspiration you can imagine.
And I think that's what makes the realization he had so powerful.
Yeah.
He describes it as a lightning bolt moment.
A literal lightning bolt. He was getting ready to tell his parents his plans that he was going to medical school, and it just hit him. He saw the entire path laid out.
There's a whole societal script.
Yeah, the go to school, get a degree, get a job, get a family, die script.
And it sounds like a cliche, but for him, in that moment, it was this terrifyingly concrete vision of indoctrination.
He saw a decade of his life just mapped out for him, and he realized he wasn't choosing it. He was just accepting a predefined structure.
So what did he do? This internal conflict must have been huge.
It led to a radical rejection.
Yeah.
Instead of going to New York, he just walked away, quit his job, left his apartment, abandoned the whole 10-year goal.
And he went home.
He went home to help his mother run her custom manufacturing business.
Wow. So most people would see that as a failure, right? Or at least a huge step down, a loss of status. How did he frame that for himself?
He defined it as a moral imperative, and that changes everything.
A moral imperative. How so?
Well, he realized that committing a decade to specialization, like medicine, meant he might have to sacrifice the immediate needs of his family for some far-off external goal.
So he chose his family.
He chose the life of his family, the immediate reality. He reframed it completely. It wasn't a failure of the pre-med path. It was a necessary choice to protect his vital human connections, to root himself in something real.
And this is where it gets interesting, because that very practical, very real decision, that was the catalyst.
That's where the creative awakening starts. He wasn't suddenly, writing poetry in a dark room. He was learning tangible physical skills.
He's grounding himself.
Exactly. He taught himself to program and run a CNC router.
Okay, for anyone who doesn't know, what is a CNC router?
It's basically a computer-controlled cutting machine. You create a digital design, and it uses these incredibly precise tools to cut or engrave that design into wood or metal, or in his case, granite. It's a perfect fusion of digital thought and physical creation.
So pure input and pure output.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And he talks about this one specific day when the router finished engraving a drawing onto a piece of granite. And that concrete result, seeing his idea made real in stone, that triggered this deep realization.
That he was the creator.
He was the creator of his experience. His mind, working through his hands, and this machine could bring something into existence that wasn't there before. The machine was just an extension of his body, of his will.
And that's the seed, isn't it? The whole sovereign creator philosophy. You don't just react to life.
You actively author it.
So once he has this awareness, this idea of self-authorship, he then has to start purging all the external controls he'd taken on.
Yes, and he uses these really powerful physical metaphors to do it. The most striking one is the journey he took with his hair.
Right, the hair.
He spent years growing his hair out as a deliberate statement of freedom. This wasn't just like a style choice, it was a test.
A boundary test.
Totally. People were constantly pressuring him. You have to cut it, you're looking feminine, you look like a girl. He said growing it was a conscious act of resistance against all these forces trying to mold him into something he wasn't.
So growing it was about external freedom, proving he couldn't be controlled.
Yes. But here's the kicker. The final act of sovereignty was cutting it all off.
Ah, okay.
After years of fighting that battle, he realized he was getting attached to the look itself, to the identity of the long-haired, rebellious creator.
So cutting it was about internal freedom.
Exactly. It was a release of that attachment. It proved that the freedom wasn't in the long hair, it was in the power to make the decision itself. He just confirmed his own authority. I'm already a free man, ain't nobody gonna tell me what to do.
So what does this all boil down to practically, for you, for the listener? It comes back to this idea that we make life so much harder than it needs to be.
Because we're taught to always look for authority.
To ask for permission.
And internal authority is the antidote to that. He learned this lesson in a really spontaneous way when he just decided to go on a West Coast music tour.
With, as he says, no planning at all.
Zero plan.
Which sounds like a total nightmare. What does no planning even look like for a music tour?
I mean, it meant he didn't send a single email to a venue, no contracts, no booking hotels. He literally just drove to a city, found a place where people were gathered, and started playing his music.
Started playing.
He just started playing. He relied on the energy of the moment, and you know what? He got paid, people fed him, and he kept the trip going for weeks just on his own resourcefulness and the goodwill he was creating.
So that experience was the ultimate proof. The real obstacles are the ones we build in our own minds.
The psychological hurdles, the bureaucracy we impose on ourselves, he just bypassed the entire system of external approval. He didn't ask for permission.
And when you have that internal authority, you just act. You stop waiting for someone to tell you it's okay.
Exactly. You realize the permission you're looking for was inside you the whole time. Breaking that conditioning.
Right.
That's the first real step to becoming sovereign.
Okay, so that road trip proves he doesn't need external permission. But once you have that internal authority, where does it lead?
For him, it led directly into some pretty necessary but often terrifying territory.
Shadow work, embracing the darkness.
Right. And what's fascinating here is he starts a deep dive into spiritual studies, specifically Sufism.
For listeners who might not be familiar, Sufism is the mystical side of Islam, right? It's very focused on the direct personal experience of the divine.
It is, and it often deals very explicitly with what he calls the dark side of love, that intense pain of separation, of longing for unity.
So he realized that pain and darkness, they aren't bugs in the system, they're features.
They're necessary data points. He says if you avoid pain, you're only living half of the experience of being alive.
It's about contrast.
It's all about contrast. If you only ever feel joy, then joy has no meaning. It just becomes your default state. He talks about spending months sitting in a pit of pain, but finding this profound beauty in it.
Because the suffering is what makes the bliss feel spectacular.
His words. The pain is what makes that love and into the feeling of wholeness and pleasure just so much better. It's the classic yin and yang. You need the black to even see the white.
But his relationship with darkness goes beyond just contrast. It's also a communicator, a tool. Let's spend a minute on this because this is important. How does darkness actually increase your personal worth?
Well, if you reject your darkness, your anger, your grief, your hard edges, you're effectively pushing away half of yourself. And that darkness is the part of you that knows how to set boundaries.
It tells you when something's wrong.
Unequivocally. It tells you when you're being manipulated or controlled or when you're being undervalued. If you numb those feelings, you lose your built-in defense mechanisms.
So the pain is like a warning system, kind of like a physical injury.
Precisely. Just like a cut on your arm, emotional pain is your soul signaling, hey, see this? This is sensitive. If you don't take care of this, it's going to get worse.
You have to acknowledge it to heal it.
You have to. Rejecting the pain by numbing it doesn't fix the wound. It just silences the alarm. And you're left vulnerable to getting hurt in the exact same way again.
So for someone listening who feels like they're surrounded by darkness right now, how does this philosophy become a useful tool instead of just more weight?
The first step is what he calls radical acknowledgement. You stop fighting it. You just say, okay, here's the darkness, here are the feelings. Once you allow it, you can stop thrashing.
And then you can observe.
Then you can observe. You can start to look around inside that darkness and find where it's least dark. It becomes a mental compass. It defines the unwanted state so clearly that you can start taking these tiny, tiny steps toward relief. It guides you toward the light by showing you what the light is not.
This perspective leads him to a really radical reframing of depression.
It really does. Instead of seeing it as an enemy, you have to fight with, forced energy and positivity.
He suggests embracing it as a spiritual winter.
Exactly. This is a concept that needs some nuance, for sure. He sees depression as a natural cycle. It's essential for conserving energy. Just like a tree sheds its leaves in winter to protect its vital force.
Depression forces you to go inside.
It forces you to go inside, protect your energy, and conduct a really rigorous internal audit. You're forced to ask, what do I truly value? And maybe more importantly, what is not valuable to me right now?
But I can hear someone thinking, telling someone who's struggling to just embrace it as winter might sound irresponsible. It could lead to just stagnating.
And that's the critical distinction. This isn't about being passive or inert. It's about active internal work. You're not doing nothing. You're dropping all the external demands that drain your energy so you can contemplate how you want to sprout next season.
The activity's all internal.
It's all an internal audit of your core values. He would say, if the depression lasts indefinitely, it might be because that audit isn't complete, or because you're still fighting the state instead of using the stillness it provides. It's a time for self-care, not for pretending you have high energy.
And he applies this same lens to fear, doesn't he? Confronting it turns this awful feeling into something exhilarating.
He sees fear as an illuminator, not a paralyzer. Fear is a magnifying glass that shows you what you cherish most deeply, the things you hold intimate and wish never to be without.
So if you fear losing a relationship,
that fear is just highlighting how deeply you value that person. By staring that fear in the eye, you gain strength. Not because the fear vanishes, but because you finally understand its source and its purpose. You know what you're fighting for.
And the practical technique here is observation, right? It's about stepping back from the anxiety.
Exactly. You move through it by observing the feeling with curiosity instead of resistance. Resistance is what makes it stick around for hours or weeks. If you just sit with it, acknowledge it, analyze what it's trying to protect. He suggests the intense physical peak of that emotion, the fear itself, can dissipate in like 30 seconds.
You turn off the alarm by validating the reason it went off in the first place.
You got it. So conquering the shadow is really about integration. You make the darkness work for you, not against you.
And that increases your internal authority.
Which is the critical link. Once you realize you are powerful enough to integrate your own pain and fear, you are no longer dependent on the outside world to feel safe or whole. And that's the bridge to the next part of this journey, the journey to unconditional love.
Okay, so this whole deep dive into shadow work and personal power.
Yeah.
It's all fundamentally linked to what he sees as the ultimate goal.
Which is achieving unconditional love.
And to do that, he had to realize that his old ideas about love were, well, completely wrong. They were based on these faulty mental projections that came from his own insecurity.
His whole definition of love had to shift massively. He had to move beyond possessiveness, beyond projections. He eventually concluded that love is simply the appreciation of that moment.
Just taking it in as it is.
Taking it in as it is without trying to force your expectations onto a person or a situation.
That's a staggering change in perspective. If you start trying to control or mold someone and just let them be, that's operating from a place of non-attachment.
And when he finally managed to let go of those attachments, he says the universe opened up and love made more sense. But getting to that state, it required some really radical personal discipline.
Right. And this is where the celibacy comes in. He made a conscious decision to harness his personal energy, his life force, for creative purposes.
He was celibate for 3 years.
3 years. Why? What was the thinking there?
He was focused on conserving his sacral chakra energy. In a lot of Eastern philosophies, the sacral chakra is the energy center for creation, pleasure, passion, all that good stuff. And he recognized that seeking external sexual fulfillment takes a ton of energy.
The whole process of dating, pursuit, the emotional ups and downs.
It's a huge energy drain. So instead of seeking that fulfillment outside of himself, he channeled all that intense creative energy inward.
And how did that actually show up in his work?
It was explosive. both in his confidence and his creativity. He was flinging paint on walls, writing tons of poetry. He describes feeling like a golden giant on this planet who could love everyone.
He has a very memorable phrase for this.
He does. He says his creative art became his sexual excretions in very colorful formats.
Which, I mean, it sounds jarring, but philosophically it makes perfect sense. He saw his art as the direct manifestation of his most potent life force.
It's a metaphor for transmutation. He took that powerful, primal energy and he transmuted it into art. It was all about filling himself up first, instead of looking for someone else to fill a void. And during this time, he also focused on loving the femininity within himself.
What Carl Jung would call the anima.
Exactly. By loving his own internal partner first, he achieved this level of wholeness that just fueled everything else.
And all this internal work was then mirrored and tested in his actual romantic relationships. He saw them as these crucial mirrors for his own growth.
His relationship history is like a perfect map of his philosophy. Let's look at the progression. His first real relationship was just defined by insecurity.
He was a walking bag of insecurities, he says.
He admits he was manipulative, jealous, and he was actively trying to put the bird in the birdcage. He didn't see his partner for who she was. He only saw her as the person he could turn her into, a projection of his own needs.
That must have been a painful thing to look back on.
For sure. He realized years later that he had tried to snuff out her light, even her love for dancing, because his own insecurity couldn't handle her being independent. That relationship was the definition of attachment and conditional love.
So how did he break that pattern? How did he get to unconditional love?
His third relationship was the catalyst. It was built on a completely different foundation. No expectations, no future, no nothing. Just radical freedom.
He gave her complete sovereignty within the relationship.
He told her point blank, if you ever want to leave, the sky is yours, you can fly, and I won't stop you. I mean, think about the evolution from the birdcage mentality. It's profound.
That kind of freedom, giving someone the absolute right to leave, it must have been terrifying, but also incredibly liberating.
It was the ultimate test of his own internal security. He proved to himself that his love wasn't dependent on her staying. If she left, he would still be whole, because the love, that firestorm of love, was burning inside him.
And this relationship led to what he calls the epiphany of unity.
Yes. And we need to frame this carefully because this experience went way beyond the physical.
It was a spiritual experience.
It was an insight into interconnectedness. During a sexual encounter, he experienced it as a merging of two souls into one. The boundaries of his ego just dissolved. He had this vision of Gaia, the Mother Earth, inviting him into her presence.
Yeah.
It completely transformed sex for him. It went from being a physical act to a spiritual connection. It reinforced this idea that the highest goal of human interaction is unity, connection, dissolving the ego.
It sounds like he wasn't just looking at his partner anymore. He was seeing a reflection of the entire universe in her.
He was seeing the interconnected life force in everything. And the ultimate takeaway from this whole difficult journey is that nobody can make us feel loved more than we can.
And that's the foundation of self-sovereignty in relationships.
Totally. Once you ignite that fire inside yourself, a love that doesn't need external validation, you become so full that you just radiate it. It's not dependent on whether someone stays or goes. It just extends outward. You become a beacon.
And if you're that secure, that beacon, then you're operating from a place of absolute power. You're creating, not just reacting. The artistic expression of the philosophy. So since his whole life became this creative project, channeling all this energy, let's look at how he actually translated that philosophy into his art, starting with his early painting.
His early style was very abstract expressionist. Think Jackson Pollock splattering paint, flinging it, creating this intentional chaos. But the key was the psychological application of it.
He used the painting as a mirror to my soul.
Exactly. He'd create this chaotic image and then use it like a Rorschach test to find concepts and stories within the mess.
So like the inkblot test in psychology, he was basically doing a Freudian analysis on his own paint splatters.
He was. He would create the image and then spend hours just analyzing the associations that came up in his own mind. The purpose was to create a lattice for the viewer's mind, an ambiguous frame that forces you to interpret it personally.
And he intentionally used an explosion of color.
Yes, to attack their mind and attack their psyche.
Why such aggressive language?
Yeah.
Attack their mind.
Because he believes inertia is the enemy. If people stay comfortable, they don't look inward. So the intense colors, the chaotic designs, they're meant to disrupt your cognitive comfort. They force you to feel something.
Prompting you to ask, why does this make me feel this way?
Yeah.
To unlock your own inner truth.
You got it. And that process of introspection, of translating the psychological deep dives, is what led directly to his first book, Expedition of the Psyche. He basically translated 32 of those paintings into 32 chapters.
His personal philosophy book.
Exactly. But after the paintings, he shifted his focus pretty heavily to music. He saw it as a better communication tool.
Right, he found limitations with painting and poetry. Painting can be ambiguous and you have to seek it out.
Mm.
And poetry, it doesn't always have mass exposure.
But music is magical. It's ubiquitous. It's in our airwaves, in our cars. It gets into our heads without us even trying.
And he saw that as a way to bypass our psychological resistance to new ideas.
He did. By packaging a beautiful message, love each other, find out who you are, with a really catchy melody, it can just slide right into the listener's mind.
He called it positive brainwashing, which is a strong term.
But it's honest. He saw how marketers use the hypnotic nature of music to implant ideas, and he decided to use that same power for something positive, to gently guide people toward looking inward.
And beyond the message, music also served a really important personal function for him, right? As a grounding force.
It was catharsis. He
Yeah.
talks about this period of intense emotional struggle where he felt totally alone, and picking up a guitar allowed him to just start strumming and screaming from the top of my lungs.
That physical and vocal release.
It provided this immense relief, this grounding. He says he couldn't have gotten through that time any other way. Music became the channel to process these raw, overwhelming emotions.
So this progression, using art for self-exploration, then music for mass communication, it eventually leads to the final evolution of his philosophy.
Which is turning life itself into the ultimate masterpiece.
The creation moves off the canvas.
And off the record, it moves into the immediate reality of his own existence. The whole focus now is to take responsibility for your own life and create and make your life the masterpiece.
He realized that art is about making someone feel something.
And he can do that even more powerfully through his own actions, his own embodied existence, the quality of his relationships. He's treating his daily choices and interactions as the prime exhibit.
So he's diving deeper now into the psychology of relationships, of life itself, and structuring his own life as the ultimate work in progress.
Exactly. He's not just showing you how to change the colors on a canvas. He's trying to demonstrate how to change the entire trajectory and experience of your own life. Practical takeaways for self-sovereignty.
This philosophical roadmap it's dense, but what are the actual daily actions that help someone make that transition? From being controlled to being a creator.
It all starts with introspection, consistent self-reflection, or as he calls it, digging.
And he means that literally,
Yeah.
sometimes.
He does. He found this incredible meditative state through, of all things, hard physical labor in his yard, literally digging holes and separating dirt and rocks for hours on end.
Why was digging so effective for him?
Because that intense physical, monotonous work completely shut off his high-speed brain. For someone dealing with anxiety or internal agitation, that physical demand created a forced silence. And in that silence, the subconscious could finally come to the surface.
So the physical digging led to psychological digging.
It led directly to finding the gems buried in his own psyche. The quiet, repetitive work allowed for these deep, often uncomfortable realizations about himself.
Like what?
Things like, I'm insecure, or I'm a cocky asshole, or I'm trying to manipulate the person that I claim to love.
Brutal honesty.
But once you lay those uncomfortable truths out, and acknowledging them is the hardest part, you can finally look at the choices that created your reality and decide if you want to keep going that way. The digging is a metaphor for excavating your own hidden truths.
Okay, so that's one tool. Another really powerful one is this concept of daily rebirth.
The radical acceptance that you are the author and director of your own life every single morning.
It's a rejection of the idea that you're stuck being who you were yesterday.
Exactly. He emphasizes we have no obligations to wake up each and every day and remain the same person. Waking up is a new opportunity, a blank script.
So how do you practically apply that, the blank script idea?
It starts with defining the new character you need to be. You ask yourself, what do I want to happen today? And who do I have to become to make that happen? It's an intentional, imaginative process.
You embody the new role.
You gather the mental and emotional resources for that role, and then you just step into it and let the day unfold. You consciously choose the identity required to manifest what you want.
And that mindset connects directly to the need for radical honesty.
He argues that when you are upfront and honest about everything that lies in our heart, you massively accelerate the pace of your life. So much time is wasted playing emotional games.
Because we're still looking for that external approval.
Right. When you just ask directly for what you want from a place of internal security, the worst that can happen is a no. But you save so much time and energy. It ensures everything you build is on a foundation of truth.
And finally, he talks about mindfulness and movement, these immediate tools for mental health.
He says curiosity is a huge driver for getting through painful moments. When anxiety hits, instead of resisting it, you observe it. You get curious about it.
You treat it like an object of fascination.
Right. You step back and you ask, what does this actually feel like? Where is it in my body? What is it trying to tell me? By observing it instead of fighting it, you stop it from accumulating and sticking around.
And when your brain is just going 100 miles an hour, physical movement is key.
Movement is expression. Dancing, walking, whatever. It physically shifts that emotional energy. Emotion is energy in motion, and if it gets stuck, that's when you get agitation or mental illness. He even advocates for platforms like TikTok.
Really? TikTok?
Yeah, because he sees it as encouraging more people are moving their bodies and expressing themselves. It's a positive outlet that stops people from getting trapped inside their own negative emotions.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. We've gone on this comprehensive journey into the philosophical architecture of Andrey Psyche. We've seen this radical shift from following expectations to seizing self-sovereignty.
And that necessary journey through darkness to gain real internal power.
And then the ultimate goal, channeling all that energy to achieve a state of unconditional love that radiates outward until your entire life becomes your greatest artistic expression.
And that internal work, it has profound external implications, especially in how we structure our relationships and really civilization itself. If you think back to his introspection on relationships.
From the birdcage to total freedom.
Exactly. That insight led him to a really powerful conclusion that women hold the market power in civilization.
That is a heavy thought to end on.
Yeah.
What does he mean by women holding the market power?
Well, it suggests that if women, as the market for partners, collectively raise their standards, if they demand honor, honesty, emotional maturity, and refuse to tolerate the insecure, manipulative man,
then men will be forced to meet that higher standard.
by biological and societal necessity, yes. In order to form families and move society forward, the market dictates the demand. And if the demand is for better, more self-aware men, that fundamentally improves the consciousness of the entire next generation.
Which reframes personal sovereignty as a foundational tool for society. So if the ultimate goal of art is to move people, and the ultimate goal of life is to be the best version of yourself, here's the question we'll leave you with. What is the single non-negotiable value you need to embody today to make your life the masterpiece you want the world to see? That's the question for you, the sovereign creator of your own experience.